Greetings, brothers and sisters. Today is Wednesday, May 14th. Wednesday. I don't know. Something like that. It's how it should be pronounced. Uh, this is kind of a moment of truth for Trumpers. Because, like I've said about my own thing with the Kamlesh Patel heartfulness debacle, at some point it becomes about the people that support the a-hole. It's more about Trumpers now than it's about Trump. Because what made Trump sort of unique and great for me in the first term is he wasn't hiding his scumbaggery, his being a scumbag. And now that he's taking this jet, and he might not even get it. Like it's got to go through Congress. They got to approve it, right? So, he might not even get it. But the fact that he would go for it in public and the way he's going about it, like if he accepted the gift on behalf of America, it would still be a conflict of interest because he's benefiting from the gift, right? Um, you know, and he's not only accepting it as Air Force One, but as soon as he leaves the presidency, it becomes his through some back-channeled presidential library bullshit donation. Like it's totally a scumbag manipulating the system type of thing, right? And, this idea that he would put America first, and my wife pointed out, which I wish I had thought of too yesterday, he wants little girls to take only one doll from China, and yet he gets a $400 million luxury jet as a gift, which is totally compromises him towards that country, right? When you get like almost a $500 million gift, you're kind of like, obligated to return the favor, right? And so, it's Trump in his total Trumpiness. And the Trumpers should be able to see through all his bullshit, right? Because it's so obvious. But, the thing that I like about it, or him in this moment, is that every one of these other guys just doesn't have the audacity to take it. The audacity to take the jet. Like Biden would totally want to take it. He just wouldn't he wouldn't be able to do it based on appearances. We got Biden stuff coming. Jake Tapper's new book is out, and there's a lot of stuff in there that is freaking people out or bumming people out about what happened with Biden. But let's start here, then we'll go to the Biden thing. Because this guy is somebody I've mocked. He's very much Trump-like. The people that hate Trump the most are the most like Trump. And this guy's a lot like Trump. Lawrence O'Donnell, the two-face, because these guys, two sides of his face really don't match up. Especially when you'll see the expressions. But also, he is the Tammer guy. He had a Bill O'Reilly type tantrum on the set of his thing, which I showed you the meme. And I've mocked this guy a lot because he's so mockable. But now he gets to be right, which is even worse. But, I'm okay with it.
Well, tonight, Donald Trump is on his corrupt thank you tour of Middle Eastern dictatorships. And as usual in the Trump presidency, the first official foreign trip to another country was once again to Saudi Arabia. Exactly what he did in his first presidency. Donald Trump, no doubt, took the opportunity to thank the corrupt dictator of Saudi Arabia, who American intelligence sources say ordered the dismemberment murder of Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi during Donald Trump's first presidency, a murder that Donald Trump had absolutely no problem with at the time because he said, of course, we have to keep doing business with murderous dictators like that.
The thing is, this shouldn't be about Qatar. Ben Shapiro made it about Qatar because he's so pro-Israeli. And the other right-wing peoples are making it about Qatar. It's they accepted a $400 million plane. Doesn't matter who from. The who from makes it worse or better or not, whatever. Doesn't, the who from is a factor. But he's a president who just accepted a $400 million bribe right in the middle of the frickin' the internet, like right in the middle of the, he did it right in front of everybody. He's not hiding it. And, something that may be illegal, but it's certainly immoral, unethical. And, that's not why you have a problem with it. Like, it's not that it's the Qataris. It's that it's a $400 million bribe. You just can't do that. It's total conflict of interest. And the right-wing people, who, all the people who buy into Trump's stuff, this should tell you all the things that you said that Trump stands for, all the patriotic bullshit you believe in, all that stuff, is clearly not true, right? It's all a fucking lie. It's just blatant lie. The other piece is, if he's willing to accept a $400 million bribe, then you don't have to kill him. That movie I was thinking about with now I can't think of the guy's name, George Clooney, Michael Clayton. He said, I'm not the guy you kill, I'm the guy you buy. You don't have to kill me, you can pay me off. The same thing with Trump. You can buy Trump. Trump is for sale. He's the most for sale motherfucker that's ever lived on this planet. He's the biggest whore in the history of whores. And you can totally buy the guy. And they just did. Qataris just bought the guy. And so Trump is for sale. There's a big fucking tattoo on his forehead that says, I am for sale. Everybody knows it. And Trump is, doesn't have to be assassinated by the deep state, right? You silly motherfuckers.
Donald Trump has billions of reasons to thank that murderous dictator, Mohammed bin Salman, who gave $2 billion to Donald Trump's son-in-law to play with. After the first Trump presidency, Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, started an investment firm with zero experience.
Oh, this is about the Saudis. I wasn't really listening to the Hammer guy. It's hard to listen to. But this is, he's not getting to the Qatar thing yet.
In investing. And he immediately got $2 billion from Saudi Arabia, which means Donald Trump's daughter became the richest Trump that day, if she wasn't the richest Trump already through marriage. Those eager Trump sons, known not to be above jealousy, are busy this week trying to outdo their sister's take from Saudi Arabia, and Donald Trump is doing everything he possibly can to join in the exploitation of the American presidency for every billion it is worth to the Trump family. Donald Trump just offered a
Donald Trump. Let's just say Donald Trump.
Worth to the Trump family. Donald Trump just offered a new defense tonight on social media for his desire to accept the biggest payoff in the history of the presidency and possibly the...
It's not the biggest one. It's the one that's most public. It's the biggest public one.
Literally biggest payoff.
George H.W. Bush, they walked away with was it $1 trillion? I don't know. 9 trillion? Was it 9 billion? I'm not sure it was. Right before the, September 10th, 2001, the day before the big event, the administration lost the Defense Department, Donald Rumsfeld. They lost $11 trillion, was it? And they just lost now $9 trillion. And I guess we lost it. And then something big happened that kept everyone from being concerned about that. Something big that involved, having to use the military. And so, there's been lots of big payoffs that we don't know about.
In world history, a Boeing 747 that the corrupt dictator of Qatar, a principal funder of the terrorist organization Hamas, wants to give to Donald Trump. The first line of Donald Trump's exclamation point defense of accepting that plane tonight is, the Boeing 747 is being given to the United States Air Force, Department of Defense, not to me, exclamation point. And of course, no one contradicts Donald Trump better than Donald Trump. Here he is telling Sean Hannity on the Real Air Force One today, why wouldn't I accept a gift?
Some people say, oh, you shouldn't accept gifts for the country. My attitude is, why wouldn't I accept a gift? We're giving to everybody else. Why wouldn't I accept a gift?
That's just classic Trump right there. It's kind of great. This is Trump being Trump. It's the only problem is the Trumpers won't accept what they're just seeing. Because him saying, why wouldn't I accept the gift we're giving everybody else, would imply that his administration and him personally is making deals on behalf of these people that favor these countries at America's expense, so he should get a gift for it, because that's what the truth is, right? But what his public persona, what he's saying is that America is being fucked over by all these countries, and he's trying to stop all that, and he should get a gift because America's given gifts to these countries, so why should he benefit, right? Which, again, if the tariff laws and the trade deals and all these things are not favoring America, why would he get a gift because people are taking advantage of America? So the way he meant it doesn't make sense. And the way it would have been interpreted totally fucks him over about America first and all these things. And so, it's showing what his true inner nature is and what a piece of corrupt shit he is, right? And, like I said, all these other people would get it. But let me see. Here's the tweet here. So let's read the rest of it. 747 is given to the United States Air Force Department of Defense, not me. It is a gift from the nation of Qatar that we have successfully defended for many years. It will be used by our government as a temporary Air Force One until such times as our new Boeings, which are very late to delivery, arrive. Why should our military, therefore our taxpayers, be forced to pay hundreds of millions of dollars? We can get it for free from a country that wants to reward us for a job well done. The big savings will be spent. The big savings will be spent instead to make America great again. Only a fool would not accept this gift on behalf of the country. You can thank you for your attention to this matter. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Fuck are you talking about, bro? Okay, you're welcome. What the fuck? And so, he's changing his tune, and it was a gift for him because he was going to run it through. He was going to take it personally afterwards, and maybe he's trying to reverse that. But, he has good playing. Like, what's wrong with the playing you have now? That's what he would say to, like, all these people that they're firing at Doge and all the kids that he expects to, all the little girls who can only have one Chinese doll now. And he's saying that he can't keep the Air Force One private fucking plane. Private plane is the best perk of being a really wealthy person because airports suck so bad now, and so do airlines. So flying on a private jet to where you could just get on and just sleep and, these incredibly luxurious jets that he has, and he's had, on his own through Trump, organization stuff. And as Air Force One. And Air Force One is pimped out with all the... it's not like some fucking shitty little private jet. There's no shitty ones, right? A private plane is better than going on, the rest of these things. It's one of the most, the commercial planes. And, Jimmy Carter, I was coming back from a spiritual gathering, and I was just out of it. I was just not paying attention to the world around me. And all these Secret Service guys got on, and I kind of just sort of noticed it, but it didn't register with me. They were talking into their sleeves, these big guys with suits. And all of a sudden, I was sitting in the very back of the plane, window seat, staring out the window. I can't really explain what happens when you go to one of these spiritual gatherings, but you're withdrawn inward. And you're just not really focused, which I've been feeling lately here now. I'm just kind of out of it. And, and you just want to focus on your spiritual whatever, your internal condition. And some guy goes, "Nice to meet you." And I look up, it's Jimmy Carter with his hand extended, and I shake his hand, my mom's favorite president, seemed like a nice guy. But he was riding, I was on a Southwest jet from Dallas to Albuquerque. So he wasn't, he was on this plane with these Secret Service guys just riding a normal jet, whatever it is. But Trump is, Trump is going to be riding private jets for the rest of his life. He just believes he's entitled to it. But he wants a better one, right? That's what this is about. Let's go back to what Trump was saying here.
Wouldn't I accept a gift?
Some people say, oh, you shouldn't accept gifts for the country. My attitude is, why wouldn't I accept a gift? We're giving to everybody else. Why wouldn't I accept
Look, he's doing one of those fucking videos where you show your two-face and you do a reaction.
again?
He didn't say anything about the Air Force accepting a gift there. Why shouldn't I accept a gift?
And the Air Force shouldn't be accepting a gift from us. I mean, it's just fucking bullshit. Like, it's just a lie. And that's the other great thing about Trump, because, like, he's just bullshit. Because he wants this thing, and he wants to do anything in his power to get it. And, the arrogance here. I mean, this is where, like, the arrogance has got to get to you.
Donald Trump knows the Air Force part of the arrangement is a complete fraud. Donald Trump wants that plane so that he can have his own private 747 after he leaves the presidency. Donald Trump has already arranged for the Air Force to simply give that plane to the Trump Presidential Library. The Trump Presidential Library will obviously be a slush fund for Donald Trump's personal use. Contributions to the library,
Which is another great thing.
surely will be solicited to pay for the jet fuel Donald Trump will
Donald
use.
Trump. I mean, if the way he loves to say Donald Trump, the whole thing. Not Trump, not President Trump, not the Donald.
To fly himself around in that Boeing 747 for the rest of his days. It's all about Qatar giving a plane to Donald Trump for his personal use after the presidency. That's what it's for. That's what it's about. And Donald Trump knows that. And the dictator of Qatar knows that. And that's why Donald Trump said, my attitude is, why wouldn't I accept a gift? Donald Trump is, of course, famously too stupid to keep his conspiracy story straight. The man is just too stupid to observe the theory of the conspiracy and say to Sean Hannity, my attitude is, why shouldn't the Air Force accept a gift? It's a 13-year-old 747, no longer good enough for the Emir of Qatar, where no one dares object to the dictator giving the plane to the author of the Muslim ban in the first week of the first Trump presidency. In Donald Trump's social media post.
Donald Trump. Okay, so, I mean, he's just, this guy loves to say Donald Trump. It's just great. And so, Donald Trump has just exposed himself, and it shouldn't even. This is just this guy. Like this was the guy he was on The Apprentice. He's all about himself. He's all about getting whatever perks he gets, and he just steps in shit all the time. In terms of the things that he gets, he just gets these things like manna from heaven, because he's a fucking bad businessman. He's a fraud, and he's a grifter. And somehow, like, he's grifted his way all the way to the presidency, which is all hilarious. And the fact that he's doing God's work by destroying the system in America is, I guess maybe that's why he just gets all this stuff. I mean, it's just, it's icky stuff. He's a gaudy fuck. If you see his places, like, it's lowbrow. Like, if you have money, it's like just some, it's like it's just, gaudy, right? It's just like the Vegas level gaudy. And he thinks that's like impressive because he's just, that fake nouveau riche bling kind of stuff. And all of it's great because it shows you it's all a fucking joke, which is why I've been saying it all along. Speaking of which, so Jake Tapper, which I showed you, has been pimping his new books. He has 2 new books out. Rocks Biden's World. Shock claim Biden didn't even recognize George Clooney. Original Sin. President Trump's decline, his cover-up, and it's his disastrous something. I will show you the rest of it in a second here. Kaboom. And so the fact he wouldn't recognize George Clooney. Now, of course, George Clooney is a famous person, which... I was talking about that movie, Michael Clayton, that, I'm not the guy you kill, I'm the guy you buy. And it's one of the few good movies George Clooney has made. Just, just a shout out to my last video about this. But George Clooney was hosting a fundraiser event for Hollywood celebrities. So going into it, he would have heard the name George Clooney over and over again. This is a George Clooney thing. Joe Biden was he just got back from traveling to outside the country, Europe or somewhere. And he was supposed to be resting, but then they had this fundraiser. So instead of getting his normal rest, he was supposed to go to this fundraiser. And they would have said, look, this is George Clooney. It's going to have all these Hollywood donors. It's a big, it's a big get for you. Here's the rest of the screenshot. He's a big-time liberal. He's big-time into Democratic politics. Tapper, White House was lying to everyone. Top Dem, he totally effed us, which of course he did. And then so he did this stuff, and then he got played, right? Like he, I mean, he went in. He not played. He went in and he nominated Kamala Harris out of spite, and that's just I mean, he fucked America. He fucked the Democrats good, which is great. And they, the fact that he wouldn't know George Clooney, he was going into this thing and would have been like, hey, George Clooney this, George Clooney that. They would have been talking about George Clooney, all the way into this event. I mean, he would have known who he was supposed to meet, and he didn't recognize the guy. And they've known each other for like 30 years. Like George Clooney's a part of the CFO. He's a player in the, he's been a player in New World Order shill. Like he's a whole, he's totally, and he's really into politics in the Democratic Party. And so this is not the first fundraiser he's thrown for Joe Biden. And, he's been a part of this whole thing. He's known him for forever. And so the fact that he would know him would be a red flag that the guy is fucking completely gone. And, of course, the debate performance happened, and George Clooney wrote that op-ed, and Jake Tapper has this book. And here, let's go to the websites here. So here it is.
In The New Yorker today reveals for the very first time what exactly motivated actor and director George Clooney to write his momentous op-ed calling on Biden to drop out of the presidential race, despite personally knowing him for more than 2 decades and Clooney's international fame as a movie star. Did not appear to recognize Clooney at that June 2024 fundraiser that Clooney...
It's funny that they were taking photos, and he didn't say anything till after the debate. Like, George Clooney, they're talking about what a hero he was for fucking doing this, which is silly. But, like, he should have came out that day after the fundraiser. He should have come out and said, the guy's gone mentally, and he shouldn't be debating or any of these things, right? Like, he waited till after the debate, and it was like a while after the debate. There was a reaction by everybody, and then George Clooney wrote the op-ed. And he didn't say, like, he didn't recognize me, which should have been a part of it. When they were trying to oust the guy, and the guy, had Parkinson's. And, this is major fucking news, but, Trump's just taken a $400 million plane. You see the degradation here. I'm going to show you something in a bit, like a contrast of two things. And the degradation, idiocracy is set in. And so, like, we don't realize because it's a slow drip where people were before, but I've lived through it. And the level of stupidity that's allowed to exist now in politics and in the news media is, stunning to what it was when I was a kid.
When he was headlining, even after a Biden aide told the president, quote, George Clooney. And it wasn't just Clooney who was alarmed, so was President Obama, so were other donors behind the scenes. Even Democratic Congresswoman Annie Kuster of New Hampshire, who saw the event on stage, which was not half as bad as what was going on backstage, came away thinking there was no way President Biden could serve another term. These brand new details coming just hours after more stunning revelations in an excerpt published by Axios that aides were privately discussing putting President Biden in a wheelchair for...
my new book that Axios is publishing from my new book.
For his second term because of his physical deterioration. Sources telling me and Alex Thompson, the Biden's team, thought it was, of course, politically untenable to have the president in a wheelchair during his reelection bid. They took steps to try to protect him in the images of his halting gait.
Yeah, because he had fucking Parkinson's.
Including finding shorter walking paths, adding handrails to steps, using a smaller staircase to board Air Force One. Aides would also accompany Biden across the White House lawn to Marine...
So, when they're talking about this, like Jake Tapper did a brilliant thing. because I said he's got fucking dementia, he's have cognitive issues in 2019. And I am not an expert, but I have some diagnostic abilities and I can read people. But you didn't have to have any of those things. The guy was wandering around fucking stage in 2019, 2020. The rest of the candidates were fucking dumbfounded that this guy was the front runner for the Democratic nomination because he was fucked in the head, right? The guy was clearly messed up, like he had fucking dementia. I showed the PBS interview, the guy that he called fat, that he challenged to a push-up contest. He was like losing it. The fucking guy was not mentally there. And he was, the dementia things. I mean, it's the same thing with Fetterman. You guys allowed Fetterman to become senator when he clearly is fucked in the head, right? Like, just, I mean, this is a condemnation of everybody else but Biden. The Republicans couldn't find a way to beat a guy with dementia. Fox News covered for him. Remember, Fox News called the election for him because they were done with Trump. The Republican parties wanted to get rid of Trump for good reason, because Trump's a fucking scumbag. And, he doesn't play by their rules. So, which is the good part about Trump. But either way, that this was not about Biden. This was about everybody fucking else.
One, or from Marine One, not only to disguise what was going on, but in case he fell. President Biden's doctor, White House physician Kevin O'Connor, warned behind the scenes that if Biden had one more serious fall, he might need to be in a wheelchair for his recovery. Dr. O'Connor had long worried about the toll the job had taken on Biden's health and joked behind the scenes about...
just admit that he has the fucking Parkinson's. Did you get to that? Because some guy on MSNBC, some doctor, said anybody could diagnose this guy with Parkinson's. He's got late-stage Parkinson's. You can see it. It's easy to diagnose. He said a first-year medical student could just watch him walk into a room and know that he has Parkinson's. Right? Like, this is, people who know it. I mean, this is people who are trained for this would easily pick it up. Because as a person who did psychological assessments, you could easily see somebody with personality disorder tendencies, like narcissistic personality disorder, which both Biden and Trump have. These types of things, right? You can just see it. Like, it's just you understand a system of a description of symptoms and things, and you just see it, right? You work with enough patients, and you just get it, right? He had Parkinson's, and they knew about it for years. And he's not the only one. We know about Fetterman. There's other people. I'll show you some more clips here in a second.
Biden staff members were trying to kill him while he was trying to keep him alive. In response to our latest reporting, a spokesperson for Biden told Axios, quote...
Wait, what was that last part? I missed that.
Worried about the toll the job had taken on Biden's health and joked behind the scenes that Biden staff members were trying to kill him while he was trying to keep him alive. In response to our latest reporting, a spokesperson for Biden told Axios, quote, medical exams made clear that Biden had a stiffened gait caused in part by wear and tear to the spine, but that no special treatment was necessary and that it had not worsened. He was transparent about this, and it was far...
That gait was because of Parkinson's. The guy described his walk, the way he turned sideways. Instead of just turning his head, he would turn his whole body. There's all these things that happen when you have Parkinson's. That there's a differential diagnosis between someone who has Alzheimer's or Parkinson's.
Far from severe. Yes, there were physical changes as he got older, but evidence...
They're still fucking lying about this, right?
Aging is not evidence of mental incapacity, and so far, we are still waiting for anyone, to point out where Joe Biden had to make a presidential decision or make a presidential address where he was unable to do his job because of mental decline. In fact, the evidence points to the opposite. He was a very effective president, unquote. On that question of did it ever rear its head and affect a decision or his ability to do the job, to that all I can say is stay tuned. But here now, more of our exclusive reporting.
My book. Look at my book, you guys. My fucking book.
Reporting about what was going on behind the scenes.
Again, he could have done this 4 years ago when it was relevant, because you could see Joe Biden was fucked then. And they were running this guy. They hit him with COVID. The whole COVID thing conveniently happened so they could elect this guy and push through a lot of their bullshit. And now they have Trump again 4 years later, which is a totally different Trump. which is again is doing the controller's bidding, and the whole thing is just, if this guy was a real reporter, he would have reported 4 years ago. It was obvious that Joe Biden was not up for the job, and they were handpicking him over better candidates that were horrible in themselves, right? An unelectable skank, right? I mean, just all the things.
In the final weeks before President Biden bowed out of the 2024 presidential race.
It was an earth-shattering political moment.
President Joe Biden
Boom.
has just announced that he is dropping out of the 2024 presidential race.
Ignited by President Biden's disastrous CNN debate performance.
Jake Tapper moderated that.
If we finally beat Medicare.
And according to excerpts first reported in the New Yorker magazine from the new book Original Sin, I wrote with Axios' Alex Thompson, before his op-ed calling on the president to resign shocked the world, one of Hollywood's biggest stars was privately alarmed about the president's fitness. This was weeks before the debate.
It was a civic duty
Oh
because
my God, he's so fucking annoying.
I found that when I saw people on my side of the street not telling the truth, I thought that was time to.
Are people still mad at you for that?
Some people, sure. It's
Some
okay.
The book is based on more than 200 interviews, mostly with Democratic insiders, almost all of which occurred after the 2024 election was over, and has new behind-the-scenes revelations from the star-studded Hollywood fundraiser, and jarring details about what Clooney, a staunch Biden ally and longtime friend, saw of the president's condition. Backstage at the fundraiser, quote, Biden hobbled out from around the corner. Clooney knew the president had just arrived from the G7 Leaders Summit in Apulia, Italy that morning and might be tired, but holy shit, he wasn't expecting this. The president appeared severely diminished, as if he'd aged a decade since Clooney last saw him in December 2022. He was taking tiny steps and had an aide guiding him by his arm. Others at the fundraiser were also horrified. Quote, it was like watching someone who was not alive, a Hollywood VIP recalled. It was startling, and we all looked at each other. It was so awful. In fact, it seemed President Biden did not recognize Clooney, one of the most famous people in the world.
In the world, George Clooney, he's so famous, he didn't even recognize him.
Someone he had known for decades.
Why are they all wearing rainbow shit?
Quote, Biden looked at him. Thank you for being here, he said. Thank you for being here. You know, George.
He's a pretty impersonation.
The assisting aide told the president, gently reminding him who was in front of him. It was obvious to most everyone standing there that the president did not know who George Clooney was. Attendees at the fundraiser were flabbergasted. It was not okay, recalled the Hollywood VIP who had witnessed this moment. That thing, the moment where you recognize someone you know, especially a famous person who's doing an effing fundraiser for you, it was delayed. It was uncomfortable. George Clooney, the aide clarified for the president. Oh, yeah, Biden said. Hi, George. And weeks later, after the monumental debate, when Clooney wrote about what he witnessed, it sent shockwaves throughout the political world. Quote, we got so screwed by Biden as a party, David Plouffe, who helped run the Harris campaign, told us, by deciding to run for re-election and then waiting more than 3 weeks after the debate to bow out, Plouffe added, quote, he totally effed us.
Totally effed us.
He
Boom.
didn't actually use the word effed. As you saw, I spoke with George Clooney recently about his new play, Good Night and Good Luck.
Wait, what do you mean it doesn't?
Good Luck, which...
What do you mean it didn't?
David Plouffe, who helped run the Harris campaign, told us, by deciding to run for re-election and then waiting more than 3 weeks after the debate to bow out, Plouffe added, quote, he totally effed us.
He didn't actually use the word effed. As you saw...
You mean he didn't say fucked, or what is that a joke? Or did you guys misquote him?
I spoke with George Clooney recently about his new play, Good Night and Good Luck, which is set entirely in 1954 until the very end.
All right, so we get the idea, right? Jake Tapper is fucking the Democratic Party now. And, a time where Trump is a disaster. And, he should have done it earlier. Like, this guy was senile for 4 fucking years. It was obvious before the election they should have never let him run. The media let this happen. But they do it all the time, right? So here's a couple more examples. So 1 year ago, this happened.
To finishing the NDA this week,
been good bipartisan cooperation and a string of
She's got to help him out. Mitch?
Anything else you want to say, or should we just go back to your office? Do you want to say anything else to the press? Go ahead, John.
So holy fuck. This guy was the #1 senator, right? He was in charge of the Senate. When the Republicans, he was the senior member of the Senate for the Republicans. And he fucking glitched the fuck out. And that was just a year ago. I think he's retired since, right? Hasn't he, or whatever? But he had a number of events like this. And then there was this. So Julia Assange's mom. Holy shit. Like it's a freak show over here.
Clerk will call the roll.
Senator Feinstein.
You say aye.
Pardon me?
Aye.
Yeah.
Just say fucking aye. That's all you got to do, Diane.
Just say
I would like to support a yes vote on this. It provides $823 billion. That's an increase of $26 billion for the
Just say aye, Diane. Diane, this isn't about that, Diane.
Department of Defense, and it funds priorities.
Just say aye, Diane. Diane, just say fucking aye.
Submitted.
yeah, just say aye.
Okay, just
Great,
aye.
Thank you.
Senator.
Jesus Christ. They're fucking. This is not the only time this has happened. I mean, I could probably do a compilation of old senators, ones that I don't even know about. I'm not a political, fan. I mean, there's people who have watched this. There's this guy, I think his name is Strom Thurmond. I mean, these people who are just gone mentally, and they're being completely handled by their team of people. And they don't want to give up the powerful position of seniority. Mitch McConnell, comes from a small state, Kentucky, not a, political powerhouse, but he had just been around for so long that he had risen to the highest level of the Senate. And so he could get shit for his state and his, they don't want to give that shit up, that power that you get from seniority. Not all senators are the same, right?
Frail and wheelchair bound, these are some of the last images of Senator Dianne Feinstein. At 90,
Jesus Christ. So remember, she died with like $110 million of assets that she could not have gotten through her salary. A private jet, same kind of bullshit. It shows you how fucked the thing is, right? And we can't forget about this guy.
Lieutenant Governor, you're running for a seat that could decide the balance of power in Washington. What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator? You have 60 seconds.
Hi, good night, everybody. I'm running to serve Pennsylvania. He's running to use Pennsylvania.
Okay, this guy got elected, had immediate mental breakdown, and now he needs a tablet to communicate with people. And he's going to be a senator for another 4 years. So this is, do you expect, these guys are liars and cheaters, scumbags, but you expect a little bit of mental competence. But it shows you the whole thing's a fucking joke. Politics is a joke, and there's no fucking Trump running shit and being an outsider and, all that stuff, right? He has a team of people. They're controlled by a higher authority, and they are allowed to do whatever they do. And if they wanted Trump gone, they would have. So that bogus assassination attempt, right? You don't need to assassinate a guy who takes a $400 million bribe right in front of everybody, right? You can buy him. And they own the guy. He's not talking. That thing is fake as fuck, a WWE, training for that event. And so the whole thing. And all these Trumpers who are still buying into this shit. Let's go back to Joe Biden here. Okay, so this is a monster video. It has 1.4 million views for MSNBC. They don't average, hundreds of thousands of views is a big video. Oh, anything over 100,000 views is a big video for these clowns over there, CNN and MSNBC. This one has 1.4 million. So 1.4 million saw this, and nobody talks about it. Like no one else talks about this, right?
To talk more about those 8 White House visits by the Parkinson's expert, I'm joined tonight by Dr. Tom Pitts. He's a quadruple board-certified neurologist. He sees...
Oh, yeah, they had 8 visits by a Parkinson's expert. So a Parkinson's expert came to check out Joe Biden 8 times, right? And they dismissed it by saying the guy was just a neurologist and it was just neurology stuff. But this guy, here, let me just...
Patients with Parkinson's all the time. He diagnoses it. I want to be completely transparent here. You've never examined President Biden. From my knowledge, you've never even spoken yet to President Biden.
Been in the same room as
and we're just going to use what we have so far, which is what we've seen, the president's interviews, and the information coming out of the White House. So my first question to you is, as somebody who's a neurologist, what you've seen from the president over the last 2 years, what you saw at the debate, the last few interviews, the way he speaks, the way maybe he walks. Have you noticed anything that gives you a red flag as a doctor?
Oh, yeah, I see him 20 times a day in clinic. I mean, it's ironic because he has just such classic features of neurodegeneration. I mean, word finding difficulties, and that's not, I couldn't find the word. That's from degeneration of the word retrieval area.
He's also overcome stuttering, though. Could that be part
Jesus Christ. This guy's the worst interviewer.
That too?
No, this is not a palatal issue or a speech discrepancy, which is very different from a lemino dysfunction, actual word retrieval, where you pick a similar question or talk around the issue, plus the rigidity, monotone voice.
Wait, go back to that, the rigidity. What do you mean?
Rigidity, loss of arm swing, standing up lordotically. You notice when he turns, it's kind of end block turning. It's not a quick turn. So that's one of the hallmarks.
See, they have all these terms, right? Let's go back to who's going to say this.
So that's one of the hallmarks of Parkinsonism is rigidity and bradykinesia, slow movement. And he has that hallmark, especially with the low voice that said was a cold. Hypophonia, a small monotone voice like this over time is a hallmark of Parkinsonism. I could have diagnosed him from across the mall.
Here are some of the...
So, clearly has Parkinson's, right? Based in this expert. They brought a Parkinson's guy in to examine him. And, when you work with these things, like whatever you do for a job, like there are things that I can recognize when I look at my Premiere Pro app. I can, like there's these, there's the audio track has these lines, these things where it shows they'll show you how like there'll be sometimes I'll be speaking with more volume, right? And that'll be a burst of volume. And you can see it, right, when you look at it. And I can look at it and see where I might cough, where I might laugh. Like, you just get used to seeing the patterns. I have dyslexia, and, that's a whole thing, But in general, you just, you get better at things. And you recognize things, right? When you work in an expert as a field in the medical community, I worked for years in treatment centers. And, you work with a certain type of people. You're married to somebody with certain kind of conditions. You have people in your life who have conditions, and you kind of become an expert on that thing, right? Time and experience and effort makes you just know things better than someone who is just looking at it from the outside. And somebody who works with Parkinson's would just know. And this guy does. And the stuff that he's saying, everything that he's saying, there's terms for it, right? There they have all these words, the various things, the symptom diagnoses, and Biden has all of these things, right?
The symptoms from Parkinson's. We just had him up there on the screen. If we can put him back. What about the movement? Some people have pointed out the way he walks. Sometimes it's not very fast, small steps. Is that something that is common in people who are battling a disease like Parkinson's?
Yeah, it's a hallmark. Shuffling gait, we call that, so little steps. Loss of arm swing from the rigidity. When we walk, we have a nice cadence. You notice he doesn't really swing his arms. And end block turning, meaning he kind of pivots around his foot. If you said, hey, President Biden, he wouldn't go like this.
But I also know, and tell me if I'm wrong here, it's very hard to diagnose Parkinson's, isn't it? it's not simple. I mean, I've heard that it can be.
It's one of the easier movement disorders to diagnose, actually.
Right,
but it's so clinic. There's very little other. And I'm a Democrat. I always say about this.
This is a great part. 'Cause this guy's trying to throw shade on it, right? Isn't it hard to diagnose Parkinson's? You know, when you can diagnose somebody by looking at them. You know, there's other things you have to take tests for. You know, there's psychological conditions you need. You know, psychological testing and some limited interaction, right? But like, if you could just look at somebody based in their movements and see, he says he sees this 100 times a day in his clinic. He works with Parkinson's people that do the exact same shit that Biden's doing.
Right.
It's just like, this guy is not a hard case.
But I've had relatives who have gone through neurological issues, and I've heard that sometimes Parkinson's is not very easy to nail. You have to take a lot of tests.
It's early on. If you're just presented with like hallucinations, that could be a variety of things, or just the cognitive problems. That could be Alzheimer's versus Parkinsonism, and that becomes a little nebulous. But once you start manifesting the hallmark motor symptoms,
right?
Slow movement, rigidity, mass facies, hypophonia. I mean, if a med student did not pick Parkinson's on the test, they'd be remediated.
So let me ask you,
So they said if a med student looked at Joe Biden and didn't pick Parkinson's for this, they would be like, yeah, you're not suited to be a doctor. Like, it's
and I know you have no idea what happened in the White House, but a neurologist coming 8 times in 8 months, does that tell you anything? Is that, I mean, I know you're just sort of speculating here, but does that tell you anything?
He's not speculating.
No.
Well, I mean, I don't know if they're like the best of friends or something, but that's a very specific, he's a movement disorder. That's a subspecialist in exactly what he has. And there's very few young people, like a Marine Guard. Most people would be med boarded out.
Oh, remember they said a Marine Guard, the guy came in to see a Marine Guard, one of his guards that might have Parkinson's, that is guarding President Biden with a movement disorder, right?
Any type of movement disorder at a young age. Like if you had Huntington's chorea, early onset Parkinson's, dystonia, bad essential tremor, you're usually med boarded out. So I highly doubt there's...
What does that mean, med boarded out?
Med boarded, meaning the military would not let you, if you have seizures, for example, you cannot usually be in the military. That is, you are
so
medical
you're saying you don't necessarily believe, and they're not saying this, but they said there's thousands of military members that go to the White House that are treated there for health reasons.
Yeah.
You're not buying that that's a random military person.
No, that would be very odd to just see a random movement disorder case at the White House, especially a young guard. There aren't many young people that have movement disorders that could be in the military.
And then, a lot of people have called...
just silly. Then they're using a military person here. It's like, oh, you don't insult the troops. Like, it's like one of those, it's so manipulative.
For a cognitive test. What exactly would that entail? What does that mean?
Now, that's the key, because word finding retrieval doesn't necessarily mean you don't know what you want to say. What I cannot comment on is his ability to make good decisions. His motor symptoms are degenerating. He has Parkinsonism. That is a fact. He has degeneration of the brain. Show me the MRI. Show me he doesn't. Put your money where your mouth is. He definitely has it. But the problem is, when you look at his situation, you can't say, oh, I know for a fact that because he didn't retrieve the word, he didn't know what he wanted to say. And that's why both him and Trump should take the 4-hour neuropsychological testing, which is the hallmark test for cognitive performance.
What do you do in this test?
A lot of things. So, for example, they may have you say...
Okay, so he goes into how Trump takes these little fake tests, and they have these 4-hour tests, right? Which all these guys should take. Like, all these people over a certain age, or if you're showing signs, certainly Fetterman, these other people. I mean, they all should probably just take it, just to make it non-discriminatory. And it's just, you're making big decisions. And you also want to make sure you're not being run by your handlers. Like, that's the big thing, right? So Joe Biden was clearly not president. And we know from that other guy, the Johnson, whatever his name is, Bob Johnson, Howard Johnson, I don't know. The guy who's in charge of the House of Representatives. He met with Biden, and Biden's people were all there, Kamala Harris and the various Chuck Schumer and his various cabinet members. And the guy knew that it was a setup, right? And so the guy wanted to talk to Biden about a specific thing that he passed. It was going to be hard for his state, Louisiana, I believe he's from. And he Biden was like, yeah, I didn't pass a bill. This is what the bill said. And it was not what the bill actually said. And the guy said, no, this is what the bill actually said. And Biden was arguing with him. Biden didn't know what he signed. And this was like, a year ago. I mean, a year before the whole thing. This guy just got elected when they took over the House. And Biden had to meet with him. And so, we know that Biden wasn't doing his job because he had handlers. And the same thing with Mitch McConnell. Same thing with Fetterman. When somebody is not cognitively able to do their job. And Trump being lied to. I mean, Trump is being isolated and he only watches Fox News. And, he's got a team of people and he's not being told all the information. Like a lot of times these guys don't know what we know. They know less than we know because they're being isolated and they're mentally fucked in the head, right? And so this shows you politics is an absolute fucking joke. And this is across the board. Trump taking this plane at the same time as this book coming out. I've talked about this. I knew this 10 years ago. I knew this when I was a little kid, but it's gotten way worse since then. It's all political theater. It's so degraded. And it is just, an absolute, it's an absolute mess, right? So let me contrast a couple of things here. I watched this speech my wife and I did a week or so ago. And let me show you this here. Okay. So there was this speech that Kennedy gave about secret societies. And I don't care about the content. You guys probably all heard the speech. But my wife and I were listening to it. And we both had the same reaction, which was, certainly the speech, his content is important. But how more eloquent these people were, these politicians were, Kennedy, Pierre particularly, how better educated they were than the dummies that we have today. It's a clear sign of idiocracy.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions.
So that was then, and this is now.
Very good. We're not looking to hurt China. China was being hurt very badly. They were closing up factories. They were having a lot of unrest. And they were very happy to be able to do something with us. And the relationship is very, very good. I'll speak to President Xi maybe at the end of the week. We have some other things we're doing. But one of the biggest things that we're doing, and I don't know if people realize this, but we made a great deal with China, a great trade deal. But it was a much bigger deal originally, and then they canceled it right in the last day. Some of you faces I remember were there when that happened. I remember you.
I remember you. All right, let's go back to Kennedy.
Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control.
There are words that you never hear. Like, when's the last time you heard a word like concealment in a speech, right? The vocabulary has diminished even before the internet, now even worse. I mean, people are talking in emojis. But idiocracy is clearly set in. So this speech was given sometime before I was born. Like, he was shot in 1963. I was born in 1964. But, what I watched in terms of news, and anytime I didn't really watch politics, but, these people were so better educated. They were better orators. They were trained debaters. And they had standards, like lords and these high-ranking people in England, these royals and these, educated people, right, that go to these fine universities. Now Harvard just gives you a degree for paying for it, right? So, the people had to be trained. And RFK Jr. talked about how in his family they would have to debate things. And he, you see his sisters and cousins and people don't like him and they have different opinions on things. And, they're all Democrats, but they're all fucking weird. They're all different. But they're educated and they were supposed to be able to, submit their thesis and they were supposed to be able to argue their point of view. And, they were trained to do these kind of jobs. And, there was a level of, but this isn't just about Kennedy. This is about everybody at that time. These people, you hear Joe Biden when he was younger. They had a different level of comprehension, ability to express themselves, even with his fucking, his stuttering and things like that he had to overcome. He used to be a better speaker. Like, he is completely dumbed down and degraded, not just from the Parkinson's, but because people are dumb now. They can't understand. You like, remember Jim John Kerry was, when he was running for president, he was so boring. And he, was talking in a more educated way, and it went over people's head. And so you have to dumb down your message, right? You have to, talk about, this is what I just made a long video about, what I'd have to do on my YouTube channel. Because of fucking, people are just, they can't handle higher level comprehension and higher level, certainly spirit, anything that's spiritual. They want to see they want to be stimulated. They want drama and dumbed down shit, right? Because idiocracy has set in.
And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
It's not just the vocabulary and the words. It's the way there's just a very formal, it's just a higher level, a more disciplined level of expression. It's just different. It's different on every level. It's more refined. And now everything's just so sloppy and so informal and just, which, I kind of like. This stuff I wouldn't like this, having to speak this way and be around people like this. But, there is clear degradation, right? I like informality, but not when it degrades into stupidity.
For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections.
Okay, so the content of this speech is great. Let's go back to Trump.
And we had a deal where they opened up their country to trade with the United States. And they took that away at the last moment, and then I canceled the whole thing. And then 6 months later, we ended up doing a smaller deal. But it was a big deal. It was $50 billion worth of product that they were going to purchase from our farmers, et cetera. And we agreed to that. People thought it was 15 because they were doing 15. We made it 50 because I misunderstood the 15. I thought they...
What? You misunderstood the 15? That's a big fuck. I misunderstood the 15, so I thought it was 50.
I said, you got to get 50. Because when I asked, if you remember the story, when I asked, what are we doing with them? My Secretary of Agriculture at the time, Sonny Perdue, said, sir, it's about 15 billion and we're asking for 15. And I thought he said 50. So I said, so they came back with the deal at 15. And I said, no way, I want 50 because you said 50. They said, sir, we didn't say that. Anyway, bottom line, I said, go back and ask for 50. And they gave us 50. And they were...
Because, someone made a mistake. I heard it wrong. So that's just a nice round number. Like, holy shit, right? Now, this isn't like a prepared speech like, that speechwriters would write. But you saw what happened on his convention. His convention speech. Well, let's watch a little bit of that. Let's go to contrast those two.
On intimidation instead of free choice. On guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned.
I mean, just, the way this is put together, the way it's articulated. And it wasn't probably people like, oh, this is such a great speech, because this was just how speeches were. They had to have this ability. Let's go to Trump's convention speech.
The president will describe in some detail his own personal reaction.
So he's going to talk about his fake shooting thing. He comes out. Of course, he gets like a fake fucking wound in the ear that was non-existent. He comes out with a big fucking giant Trump. Gaudy as shit, this WWE thing. With this monster fucking ear thing on his bandage here.
Corey.
Okay, they should have...
They may call that entertainment. I know about entertainment, but when he used to lift a 350-pound man over his shoulders and then bench press him 2 rows into the audience, I say maybe entertainment, but he is one strong son of a gun. I will tell you, I watched it many times.
So, think about how Idiocracy with the president was like that, one of those like wrestling guys. And this is, the Hulk Hogan thing. So Idiocracy clearly is set in. And you could go back to Joe Biden's old speeches and compare them to his recent speeches. And without the Parkinson's, just the degradation. Because it's not just the guy's ability to articulate his point of view and the lack of training, the lack of critical thinking skills and the ability for somebody to, present as an orator a speech. It's also about the audience. It's more about the audience because people can't understand that shit, right? I bet the majority of people, you played them that Kennedy speech, they couldn't make head or tails. It's like he's speaking a foreign language because they're so degraded in their mental capacity. So this is a good comedy bit. This guy is John Brayan. It's a Christian comedy sort of. He's a Christian comedian. This thing is it's got 2.5 million views, and it was 13 years ago, right? So that is 2012. He starts out by talking like this here. He says this.
Shakespeare had a working vocabulary of 54,000 words. 54,000 words in his working vocabulary. We, today, in the United States, have a working vocabulary of 3,000 words. That's why when we read Shakespeare, we're like, what light through yonder window?
So he talks about how, he's trying to read the classics, and he said, it's his native language. So he reads Three Little Pigs, like in Shakespearean here.
Forthwith shall I endeavor by employing means both huffing and puffing to dismantle yon flaxen fortress.
So it's a good bit. You can listen to the rest of it. But he does the whole Three Little Pigs in Old English. And you could see, it's just where we are now. And this is 13 years ago in 2012. And that was before social media took off like it has now and all the things, the emojis and the whole thing. And so the degradation, Idiocracy is clearly here. The movie like undersold it, right? And it's, and that was even farther in the future. And so, Idiocracy is here, and it's very clear. And it's all a joke then, right? How can President Trump make America great again when he's so degraded himself? And I'm not talking just about his corruption and the jet. I'm talking about his language, his education, his comprehension, right? These founding fathers, go read the Constitution. The way these documents are worded. These guys had a higher level of education than we do, even though we have more information. And my wife was just saying all these kids today are now just using AI. I was saying that AI is the biggest ass kisser. AI doesn't have an ego, so they're like taint lickers. They completely, they tell you how great you are, and they agree with you, you're right, and oh, wow, such a good point. Just there to make you feel good about yourself. Like that's part of what they've done with AI. Because the AI is so much, what the AI is, it has an enhanced ability to comb the internet and search the internet the way that you could never do, and then conceptualize the information. And, like I showed how they completely failed when I asked them about Pockets of the Future, because, they're going with the mainstream narratives and what's being promoted by Google. And so had to apologize to me, with a fake fucking way, right? And I could reread that thing here, but I covered it like 3-4 videos ago. But AI is, they smooth you. They're very, it does two things. It searches the internet and conceptualizes and configures information into these, these reports in a way that you would not be able to do. And now all these kids are using AI to write their papers. They're not developing their brains to do these types of things. I used to be able to make a mental map. I mean, I could still do it, but why do I have to now that I have GPS? I have, all these ways of using my cell phone to navigate. But I used to be able to navigate. When I was a kid, I got a merit badge in navigation. And when I, became older and I moved to places, I would have a mental map of the whole city, of the area, and I would know how to get from one place to another. I mean, all of us did, without having to use some sort of GPS, right? Like, we didn't have to. We used to read maps, and we'd understand how to get to places, right? We knew which roads, which highways went where, and we had these things. And it was this mental map. And now, of course, we don't have to do that with GPS and what we have on our phones and all the rest of it. But there's a degradation. We've lost things. We've lost that, where our minds are being exercised. And this is a, complete breakdown in our society. And certainly politics is a good example of this thing. And so all the rest of this stuff becomes meaningless because you're stupid as fuck, right? We're all stupider than, we were years ago. And we are expected to, understand things. I mean, it's so easy to be deceived when you're stupid, right? And like, you just, all of the, the ability to articulate our point of view. Like you said, they had 50,000 working vocabulary back in the years of Shakespeare, and now we have a 3,000 word. And I think that's generous. I think lots of people have, I mean, maybe, 3,000 words, it seems like a lot, but it's not. And, this is
Whereupon there issued forth from the wolf an exhale of gale proportions.
So, I mean, there's a good bit. And again, doing this in 2012 should scare the shit out of you because we've dropped like stones in a, in a way because of the internet. These kids, the generations of, stupidity, right? It's piles upon piles of degradation. It's just, you get buried in your ignorance. And so everything else is meaningless. If this is how stupid people are, then you can't connect with them. They can't understand, abstract concepts and even the basic, meaning of things. And like, those of us who were born before and we had a better education, we had real world lives. I mean, we're so much more evolved. And, I talked about this when I became a homesteader. Because my whole life I thought of farmers as being less than. Like, not because I, my own prejudice, because that's what I was told by society. That people worked on the farm, people in the country were ignorant boobs, they weren't as smart as college-educated liberal Democrats, this kind of thing. And, even people who were Republicans who lived in the city looked down on, country people. When I started a homestead, I'm like, oh my God, I have to be so much more of a person than I was before. And, I was barely scratching the surface. You have to function in so many different ways. And, you become a much more evolved, not even evolution is not the right word. Like, there's things inside of you that are being suppressed or not being utilized. They've atrophied. They have atrophy. And they're not, because you haven't done things that people are supposed to do. It's like you're an animal caged in a zoo, and you're not allowed to be what you're supposed to be. And you start homesteading, you start living in an agrarian way, tribal people and these other people, and they seem primitive because of their tools and their technology, but they had so much more. They understood life so much better. They interacted with nature so much better. And then, of course, when education was there as well, the education was substantial, and you can't even read those books. I mean, kids don't have to read that shit anymore, I bet, because they can't. You know, the level of vocabulary, the expression. I mean, when people read the Bible and shit, you know, the words, the language is so degraded now compared to what it was. It's not just they were different words, like there, thou for, and thou, and thee, and these things. But, you know, there was just more words. And anyway, so like this is where we are as a species. All the rest of the stuff is just why. You know, like it's just, you know, the effects of this degradation, right? Because once they degrade you, then you're just too stupid to do things on your own, right? Now you're the sheep that are led by the Judas goat, because the sheep are too stupid to make decisions. So they see a goat and they're like, oh, that goat's a freaking genius. Let's follow the goat. And the goat leads them to slaughter because the goat is trained by the person, the people. And the goat goes back in with a new set of sheep, and the sheep follow it around. And when it's time for slaughter, the goat leads the sheep to slaughter. And so, you know, that's why they call it a Judas goat, because sheep are too stupid. And it's also a passivity that's set in. It's not just the stupidity, but it's the passivity. And so you can't, you know, I mean, people can't do higher level consciousness. This is why, you know, when I talk about connecting to the divinity within you, I mean, the majority of people, fucking, what is talking about? Oh, fucking, you know, could I see somebody falling on their ass? Why don't you show me somebody falling on their ass? I can handle that, you know, like sucking. So that's where we are today. Okay, so this guy Fly Soja with this one of the island boys, remember they made out with each other. Apparently now he has a wife with fucking some kind of Cruella de Vil haircut, right? And he has this kid here, this baby.
Respectfully asked, does the baby have the same condition as Krishan Raw Baby? No, not at all.
So this is one ugly motherfucking baby. That is one weird alien-looking motherfucker, right? You know, and hey, come on. I mean, I feel sorry for the baby being this guy's his dad, the fucking island boys. But Jesus Christ, holy shit, right? And so somebody addresses it here.
Oh, I cannot stand comments like this. Bro, it's E.T.'s baby, not yours. Don't you ever talk about my beautiful son like that ever again.
Well, he's turned off the comments here.
You understand me? Don't you ever talk about my beautiful son ever again. Look how perfect he is. He's beautiful, and I'm going to protect him at all costs because we live in a cold world. He is beautiful. Don't talk about my son like that ever again.
He's crazy. We've seen him fight before because he's a badass. He's 5'2", 120 pounds, a pure fucking twin brother making out rage. And so, you know, this is being shown to you because of the degradation, right? This is the degradation of the idiocracy that's set in. And I think his brother's in prison now. Didn't one of them get busted or something? I haven't been keeping up with the Island Boys. But you get it, right? This is, you know, this is where people are at. Okay, so I want to wrap this video up here. I asked ChatGPT, whatever I call it, about I have ChatGPT on my phone, or Siri bypasses like Siri just sucks. So the ChatGPT has a much better range of figuring out what you're asking, and it's this guy Fly Soja who was arrested. So I don't know when this video is from. It says 3 days ago. So, you know, so it's recent. But apparently he was arrested for something I thought had to do with drugs. I thought he was going to prison. But he's the one who's had the kid. So I guess the other one is the better one, right? So that's what we have here. My wife and I went for a walk. We saw the snake again that I posted in my last video. The video that's up today on Wednesday, May 14th. This video will be up on Thursday. And I, you know, was saying how, like, especially with snakes, they just appear. Like, it's always something. We see a lot of different types of animals. And, you know, and especially the time of year, And there's just a cycle of animals that we see. But it's almost like, and they have this like Indian, Native American animal guides, and Druid tradition had the same thing when animals crossed your path. It's almost kind of like a simulation. My wife was saying, she heard somebody talking about this the other day where the person said, it's proof that we live in a simulation. Like you're going to Walmart and there's no one in the aisle, and then all of a sudden there's all these people there, like these NPCs. And so it'd be interesting to see if some of these people had really any other existence than being Walmart customers, outside of whatever. But, the world is fucked, right? We're totally fucked. And, it's a mess. And it should be obvious to all of us what that involves, because it's across the board and it's everywhere. And this is a much bigger story than the civilization collapsing and anything in terms of our material life, because this is the reason for the collapse, right? Like we're degrading, we're de-evolving, we're becoming less than. And there's a lot of factors, the chemicals, the toxins in the food, certainly the internet and the cell phones and the cyber life, and the degradation of the human species to where we were just much less than we were before. The obesity. I mean, it's like everything that you compare now to the past, we were in better shape in the past. You compared what they have these memes where it says, this is what a kid was doing in the 1920s, and this is what the kids are doing now, right? And, my kids grew up milking cows, and we had a little bit of a homestead, and they learned some of these things. And, and I realized, wow, they're getting a lot more skill levels than I had. And, just across the board. You have all these, ways that we're being degraded. And, psychologically, too. Like, we're batshit crazy. Everybody's ADHD now. Everybody, I did that video about Hilaria Baldwin blaming her 2 accents on her messed up brain, her ADHD and dyslexia, which is silly. But somebody says, oh my God, every one of these 40-year-old women out there are now being diagnosed. Every other one is being diagnosed with ADHD. There's a whole thing. Everyone wants to be pathologized and all the stuff we saw. Everybody wants to have a, kid that's on the spectrum of some other thing like this. They all want to talk about these kids and their problems. People celebrating being broken, and the brokenness is self-evident. And so this is a fucking mess, right? And we live in this mess, and whether it's a simulation or not, or any of these things, if they're, the collapse that's coming is due to, I've said this all along, the system is a reflection of what we are, and we're a reflection of what the system is. And this is a systemic problem. And in, it's like the DSM-5, they don't give any, there's no diagnosis for you're not fucked up, the system's fucked you up. And you have, thousands of diagnoses and just all fucked up things that people are exhibiting. And more people are now having more and more severe psychological issues. And it's their fault, right? Well, how's it their fault? It's a systemic problem. They're always like, oh, this system is great, and if you can't make it in the system, it's something wrong with you. But then why is everybody psychologically fucked in the head, right? And so, it's all there. And so none of these other things are as important as the cause, right? This is the cause. This is the cause of our downfall. We're going in the wrong direction. So how do we be elevated to a higher level, even beyond what we were before? Because we were materially better off before, but spiritually still very immature and repressed. And so, like, if we had a society full of Jesuses or saints or whatever higher developed souls, then what would society be like, right? It would be transformed. And the system we had would be a reflection of that. That's why I talk about connection to the divinity within. But the rest of this shit is just, what it is now is we're clearly going in the wrong fucking direction. And everyone should be aware of that. So being a Trumper or being a Bidener or being a, anything that the material system has to offer, the beast system has to offer, is just a part of the beast system. And the good things of the beast system are still a part of the beast system. And so the whole system has to go. It's not like we can transform something that's taken us in the wrong fucking direction. Only spirituality will save this world. It's paramount, definitely important for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.